Joe Survant served as Kentucky Poet Laureate from 2003 through 2004. He's the author of 5 collections of poems. His most recent, The Land We Dreamed, completes his Kentucky trilogy. His book, Anne and Alpheus, 1842 to 1882, was awarded the Arkansas Poetry Prize by the University of Arkansas Press. Other awards include the State Street Press Poetry Prize for We Will All Be Changed, and fellowships from the National Endowment for the Humanities, the Fulbright Program, the Asia Foundation, and an Al Smith Fellowship from the Kentucky Arts Council. His other books include Rafting Rise and The Presence of Snow in the Tropics. His poems have been published outside the U.S., in Canada, the UK, Malaysia, Singapore, and China. He is Professor Emeritus of English at Western Kentucky University. Without further ado, we will now turn the podium back over to Joe.
Well, poetry should be incendiary. But yeah, now what am I going to read? I'm going to read a little memory piece, and with a disclaimer, coincidentally, before the ceremony began, had a short conversation with a former student about the unreliability of memory. And so I'll make a disclaimer. I think this is my earliest memory, but who knows? My father's youngest brother, who lived most of his life in Lexington, William Survant, joined the Marines when he was 17 years old to go to fight World War II, and ended up in the Pacific Theater and was in on the invasion of the island of Iwo Jima, which occurred 70 years ago this past February. So there are a lot of landmarks right now. Not only was Robert P. Warren born today, but Lincoln was assassinated 10 days ago, 150 years ago. So, and World War II is beginning to wind to an end by this time, looking towards invasion of Okinawa by now. But anyway, my father went off to war. My mother and I lived with my grandparents in Owensboro. While he was gone, I had just been born, and I think I remember my Uncle Bill coming back from World War II, and was involved in the invasion of Iwo Jima, which is probably one of the worst battles of World War II. Terrible, terrible battle. So this is a memory poem with quotation marks around it. After seeing photos of Iwo Jima for my grandparents and their sons, when I saw Iwo's black sand and Suribachi's moonscape, I was suddenly given a gift from my deepest past. My father's little brother, back from war in the Pacific, back from Iwo Jima, appearing suddenly in the dining room with its deep varnished panels and the rosewood table's 8 chairs that made up my indoor forest. My Uncle Bill opening his duffel bag, an olive drab Santa producing a small Sherman tank for a dumbstruck 3-year-old. It was my grandparents' house on Walnut Street, where my mother and I waited for my father to come home from war. The old basement furnace, its lungs full of coal dust, breathed its warm breath into the room. The floor vents sighed, and my grandmother squealed with unbearable surprise. Thank you.